Welcome to this explainer. Look, if you're a focused learner trying to completely dismantle and rebuild how you view the Quran and ancient scripture, you are absolutely in the right place. Today we're exploring a framework that honestly feels a lot less like traditional theology and way more like hard science fiction. We're going to examine this really profound proposition from the source material, that this specific ancient scripture isn't just a collection of historical stories or basic moral codes. No, it's actually a precise, living, biological blueprint, a self-reading topology that operates on the exact same mechanics as human DNA, quantum physics, and massive natural cycles. It's a wildly different way to process information, and we're going to break it all down.
The book is not text. It is a chromosome. 2 chromatids, 1 centromere, 1 reader. I really want you to let that sink in for a second. We are completely shattering the illusion here that the book is just some static ink on a page. The sources we're analyzing today propose that the text is structurally alive, just waiting for a biological agent, that's you, to read it, decode it, and activate the whole system.
So to navigate this incredibly dense, multidisciplinary theory, here's our game plan. We'll start by defining the book as a living chromosome, look at its 2 chromatid strands, find the centromere, dive into the actual physics of the text, contrast separation versus true unification, and then, finally, we'll talk about activating the reader's circuit.
All right, Section 1, the book as living chromosome, from static text to biological blueprint.
Okay, let's dive into this. The source material maps out the text in a way that literally scales from a microscopic verse all the way up to a cosmological topology. It makes the argument that if you're reading this text linearly, it's like looking at a single isolated string of biological code and completely missing the living, breathing organism right in front of you. Think about a human cell for a moment. It takes about 2 meters of static DNA and compresses it into a microscopic space by wrapping and coiling it. Well, the source framework argues that the scripture functions in that exact same way. The static and variant signs, called ayat, are basically your static DNA. But when they get wrapped, folded into time and space, and placed into context, they become hayat, a living, dynamic organism. It's pure information, executing itself in real time.
Moving on to Section 2, the 2 chromatid strands, the dual lineage of revelation.
If the book is a chromosome, right, it has to have an anatomy, so let's dissect this text chromosome and look at its 2 distinct but perfectly complementary strands. And this brilliantly illustrates how science and scripture reflect the exact same dual architecture. Just like quantum physics has the duality of a wave versus a particle, the text has 2 distinct lineages. You have chromatid A, the sound wave lineage. This features figures like Dawood with the Zabur, Yahya, and Musa. It's the temporal push. It's unidirectional, dealing with physical form, entropy, and linear struggle. Then, on the flip side, you have chromatid B, the wisdom light lineage. This features Solomon and Isa. This one is bidirectional. It holds structural coherence and gauge-invariant truth, completely bypassing standard biological paternal inheritance, wave and particle. So, how in the world do we read these 2 strands together? Well, the framework points to verse 344 as the ultimate reading frame, the decoder. It says, "You were not there when they cast lots for Maryam, yet the book decodes the unseen." This is the pivot. Both of these massive lineages are revealed through pure Kitab-knowledge alone, meaning it entirely bypasses the need for you to be physically or historically present. Which brings us to Section 3, the centromere and the grip, the cosmic binding site. So what prevents these 2 massive prophetic strands from just tearing apart into dead, disconnected stories? The answer is coordinate 1912. O Yahya, take the scripture with strength. The source framework absolutely zeroes in on this specific coordinate as a massive anchor point. It's the absolute collapse point. The command to take the book with strength acts as the literal ignition switch that binds both chromatids and activates the entire system. To put that into perspective biologically, in a cell, the centromere is what holds sister chromatids together. In this textual topology, verse 255, the throne is the centromere, and it explicitly says that it never sleeps or slumbers. Why is that absolutely crucial? Because without this perpetually active centromere, the earth arm and the heaven arm would just drift apart, degrade, and tear. The book itself is acting as the cohesive complex locking the whole universe together. All right, Section 4. The physics of the text, the DCU breathing system.
We're shifting gears into the hard sciences here to map out what the source actually calls the breathing of the text. Now, what's really interesting about this is the incredible convergence across totally different disciplines. The source outlines this recurring 1-2-3-7 system. Take photosynthesis. You start with a seed at 1, a photon strike triggers it at 2, it buffers through an electron bridge at 3, and emerges as oxygen and sugar at 7. Metamorphosis? An egg at 1, an ecdysone enzyme trigger at 2, it dissolves into pupal soup at 3, and emerges as adult wings at 7. Even the Collatz 3n+1 mathematical conjecture does this. Numbers trigger, divide, buffer through odd and even wandering, but always emerge into a 3n+1 unity. The source argues the text literally follows this exact same physical and mathematical breath.
And the math gets even more specific with this depressed cubic function right here. Okay, before your eyes completely glaze over from the trigonometry, let's look at what this actually means. The framework explains this equation through verse 2187, the story of Yunus, Jonah, swallowed by the whale into triple darkness. This isn't just a metaphor. It's the mathematical representation of a variable descending into a localized minimum, generating the exact return vector needed to escape.
The source literally treats these verses like coordinates on a sci-fi star map. Look at the progression. First, Yunus hits maximum compression inside the whale and remembers the source. In math terms, the discriminant is negative here. There's only one root. It's just total darkness. Second, the 1912 activation, that grip on the book we talked about, enters the equation. Third, because of that grip, the mathematical discriminant actually flips from negative to positive. And fourth, 3 real roots of full conscious awareness emerge. It's the literal mathematical progression of escaping total darkness through a phase shift in consciousness. Mind-blowing, right?
Let's look at Section 5, Separation versus True Unification. The transaction hinges.
Just like how biology has counterfeit enzymes that block processes and genuine binding sites that let life flourish, this textual topology has genuine and counterfeit hinges. A genuine centromere binds correctly, like coordinate 2169, where Ibrahim's fire is made cool and safe, locking in his lineage, or Harun, acting as a crossover enzyme to convert separation into unity. On the other hand, a counterfeit centromere causes a dead end. Take verse 2102, where magic and false knowledge split a man and wife. That represents fake photosynthesis or fake metamorphosis. It leads to systemic collapse. The book acts as the only true catalyst protecting the system from those counterfeit splits.
I have to say, I love how incredibly esoteric and specific the source material gets right here. Comparing ancient theology to the Calvin cycle of plant biology and pupal soup, come on, that's brilliant. Verse 4220 is the ultimate harvest transaction. You essentially have a binary biological choice. You either choose the hereafter sugar and the imaginal disc that leads to wings, or you choose worldly CO2 and larval necrosis. It's the cullet's choice, right? The +1 breath of unity, or just infinite odd wandering.
And finally, Section 6, Activating the Reader's Circuit, the First Muslim.
Because here's where it all points directly at you. The crucial point is this: the chromatids, the centromeres, the cubic breathing. It is all completely inert without an active biological agent. It needs a reader to make it read itself. And the reader isn't just sitting there passively observing. According to this topology, by engaging the text, the reader actually becomes the recombinant product of this entire chromosome's crossover. You inherit Adam's boundary, Nud's vessel, Ibrahim's fireproofing, Dawood's chainmail, and Yahya's grip. You literally become the living intersection of all these coordinates.
And that leads to the ultimate climax of the framework. Coordinate 6163, the circuit closure. The verse reads, "I am the first of the Muslims." The source argues that the exact moment the reader crosses this gate, submitting totally without any partner, they become the Ahmed node. The circuit completely closes, the forward bias is total, and both the light and sound lineages return perfectly to the seed. The text has fully executed its code inside a living human.
So, I want to leave you with a truly provocative thought to walk away with. If we view this ancient text not as a dusty history book, but as a living chromosome, a self-reading topology, and if you are the active biological enzyme required to decode it, once you actually cross that final 6163 gate, what reality do you generate next? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep focusing, and keep questioning the architecture of the information around you.